What's going on, Cool Betters? Episode number 2 of the Coolbet Podcast is here. My name is Pat Gregoire, and I'm joined by both my co-hosts, Jake Bolin Moss and Kris, a.k.a. Coolbet Kris Abbott. Now, boys, I learned my lesson last time. I'm going to introduce and ask how you guys are doing one by one so we don't have any awkward moments, even though I just made it pretty awkward right there. But, Kris, we'll start with you, my man. How's it going?
That's going good, man. I've been on a little bit of an NHL heater here this week, so I'm excited about that. Had a decent week last week in the NFL, so yeah, I haven't been making as many deposits lately, so I'm a happy man. It's good.
That's always a good thing. And Jake, you look a little bit tired. Have you caught up on any sleep from the Aussie Open sweats? You were basically standing to will these Canadians to victory, but unfortunately, both the two Canucks on the men's side fall in the quarterfinals, but still electric content you were pumping out and obviously winning some bets here as well.
Yeah, a few late nights this week, probably not up to my regular sleep schedule, but I don't know, anything it takes to try to help these guys. I'm very superstitious. Even prior to my gambling career, in my hockey career, I was very superstitious. So it's just something that if I think it's working, I'm just going to keep doing it. So I think it all started with the Shapovalov match. Yeah, I was standing when he broke in the third set and then hopped back up for the fourth set, took a video. And then I actually took a few more videos in the fifth set when he had a few chances, but he wasn't able to capitalize and unfortunately couldn't get through Nadal. But I think there's a bright future for Canadian tennis.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Obviously, it wasn't a great Aussie Open for Layla, and Bianca's been struggling with some injuries, but all in all, on the men's and the women's side, things are certainly looking to be bright for Canadian tennis. It's just a matter of time until one of those guys break through. But you got to feel this might have been the time to do it, considering Novak Djokovic wasn't playing. This was, the door was wide open, but unfortunately it can't be done. On that topic, though, I was thinking about this, watching that video. Do either of you guys have any other superstitions when it comes to gambling? I know you guys are both ex-athletes, and we all had our superstitions getting ready for games. Did you guys have anything like that?
I actually never, all I did when I played hockey was I put my left gear on first, not like all of it, but when it was like left shin pad, right shin pad, left skate, right skate. I don't think that's superstition, but that's the only thing that I kind of did consistently. But you, as you know, I'm on this fade Team Canada to help with the overall cause thing. That's been working very well for me. Betting against the women's Olympic soccer team, betting against the women's hockey team, betting against now the men's soccer team. But I do have a problem because Sunday I'm going to the game in Hamilton and I don't want to bet against them. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
Bet the under.
It's funny, Kris.
Bet the under.
Yeah. It's funny, Kris mentioned the left shin pad, right shin pad. I was always left shin pad first. It was 100% for me a superstition. Kris said maybe it wasn't the same for him, but I don't know. It's always something that I had in my mind. But off that topic of superstition, this game always gets brought up. I went to Syracuse with a few buddies go to hockey in upper state New York. Went to the Syracuse-Clemson game, college football. We all took Syracuse plus 28. And slowly but surely, we're watching our bet lose. Late in the game, they're down 28. And there's probably 2 minutes on the clock. And we got some guys that are pretty heavy gamblers there. Some guys maybe not as big. But we're all on the Syracuse side. And they decide, well, there's about a minute and a half left. Let's get out of here. Let's start making the walk for the doors. I did not want to leave because I'm like, this is going to lose our bet right here. I kid you not, as we walked into the foyer from the stadium, breaks off maybe a 70-yard rushing touchdown for Clemson. They cover the 28. We don't even get our push on the money. So just stuff like that, little things definitely, I think, play a role. I don't know. Obviously, I couldn't have made no difference if we were standing there, but I would have liked to know that the bet had at least pushed standing there as opposed to walking out into the foyer. So
what year was that game? I feel like I was betting on that. Was that 2018, 2019?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, 2019 probably.
Yeah, I was betting on that game. I think I can't remember, but I might have had Clemson. I can't remember, but I do remember that particular game and those teams because a guy I used to work with, his name's Harry Gagnon. He's part of the Degenerate Trifecta with Cousin Sal and those guys, and used to be on the Ringer, and now they've got their own extra point stuff. But Harry's a buddy of mine. He went to Syracuse. Actually, I lie. He went to SUNY, but he's a big Syracuse guy, and that's why we were all over that game.
Anytime.
So that's definitely something that I always like. You got to watch the bet win. Like I got to see the bet win to know it's a winner before I'm celebrating early.
It's kind of like when you're not putting really well on the course. You got to hear that putt. You don't take a gimme because you got to hear that sound. You got to hear the ball go in. So kind of the same thing for me. Two things. One, I never bet on teams I cheer for. I assume that I absolutely mush them. And then if I do the opposite, what Kris does, then if my bet does win, I feel that, I shifted the course of the universe and I'm the reason why Notre Dame lost by 1 billion to Alabama in the semifinal, or the Leafs choked for the 1 billionth time in the first round of the playoffs.
I got some good news for you. Got some good news for you, Pat. That's not your fault whatsoever.
I've been telling that myself in the mirror year after year. The Joker meme, putting the makeup on. It's not your fault. But no, the other one, and this one's going to expose me for my immaturity. But one time, it was a random bet. Me and my buddies, maybe a couple of pops were flowing around. I put in a bet, and I put whatever the bet was, and the sense was 69. Haha, Rob Gronkowski. But sure enough, I go on a run here, and I had to keep betting whatever the money amount was. I had to have 69 after attached to it. So now all my bets I place, it's whatever and 69 cents. So I am a child, but I have a dumb brain, and I figure if I didn't put 69 cents, I'm not going to win that bet, even though I've continued now to lose a lot of bets. But here nor there, we have an awesome guest for episode number 2. It's Andrew Hustler Paterson of Winnipeg Sports Talk. When we come back, we're going to bring him on, and it's another wild weekend of wagering. So who better to have on than Andrew Hustler Paterson? When we come back, the man they call Huss will be joining us. We now would like to welcome on our second guest in the Coolbet Canada podcast history. It's the man, the myth, the legend, Andrew Hustler Paterson. Huss, thanks for coming on, my man.
Guys, great to be with you. This is awesome that we've got a Coolbet podcast. I'm very honored to be one of the first guests on the program. And I'll tell you what, coming into this weekend, this is a heck of a time to get the boys together to talk about what's on the board, because we've got a couple big football games to see who's going to the Super Bowl. Kris and I, big curling guys, are ready for the Scotties to get going. And of course, one of my favorite events to bet on each and every year is, of course, the Royal Rumble. And that's coming up on the weekend too. So as depressing as the hockey team is making all of us here in Winnipeg right now, hopefully we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. Be doing that for 2 hours today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. A lot of other things to be excited about. And of course, our Canadian men's soccer team. Kris is going to mush these guys straight to the World Cup championship. This is unbelievable. Thank you again for your service to our country, Kris.
I feel like I'm going to be in Qatar, just like sitting sideline, betting on, I don't know, Spain or whoever's there, and still see Canada win, which I'll be completely happy to do. I mean, listen, it worked for the women in the Olympics at the soccer. It worked for the women at the World Hockey Championship. So why not? It's only money.
I'm nominating you for the Order of Canada for what you have done for our national teams over the course of the past year. It's something else, but much like Pat was mentioning with the, if you're winning bets and you're betting 69 cents afterwards, whatever it is, just keep doing it. And this is an incredible commitment.
I know. I'm actually a little bit shocked I wasn't named like chef de mission or the flag bearer or something for Beijing. Like I feel like I should be rewarded here somehow.
The flag bearer with like a ticket for Norway to win most medals.
Oh, that is incredible. That is incredible. Well, Huss, while we're on that topic, do you have any sort of betting superstitions? obviously whatever you've been doing lately is working, because you and Nielsen, the entire lock shop is on an absolute heater right now.
Not the entire lock shop.
It's been,
yes.
The playoffs have been great. Although, I mean, I said to the guys, I was due in some ways because I finished the NFL season like the Colts did. I mean, pretty much. The last couple of weeks were disasters for yours truly. But, often, you just got to pick yourself up and get back at it. I mean, I love the playoffs, and this has been, I think, my best playoffs ever. I mean, I found that I've always been a bit of a graveyard in the wild card weekend and then do better in the subsequent weeks. But we had a great start. And I mean, hell, Dusty went 6-0 against the number the first week. So,
crazy.
He set the bar pretty high trying to keep up. But, obviously going 4-0 last week and finishing it off with my Chiefs winning against the Bills that was a Sunday I will not soon forget. But as far as superstitions, I mean, I'm sort of like you. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Jets fan. I rarely bet on the Jets, and it sort of goes back to the whole thing. I mean, it's even worse when you lose, because not only are you losing your bet, and that's God damn it, I mushed my team again. So I will usually stay away from that. Although, to be honest, that hasn't been the case, for instance, with the Bombers the last couple of years. I mean, they've made a lot of us a lot of money with this turnaround of winning the 2 Grey Cups. And it's funny, as far as the Chiefs go, I mean, I'm a longtime Chiefs fan, and I still, especially even during the Mahomes era, like outside of the first season, the numbers have been so high that the Chiefs are notoriously a team that actually has not covered the number. Now, I think there was a market correction this year when they had that rough start at 3-4. And we've actually been able to kind of get back on track and maybe win a few on them. But for the most part, like many, I'm looking for the best numbers. I'm looking for the games that I really feel the best about. And, if I do lay a bet on my team, it's still about winning the game and maybe less about the number. But as I say, we're betting all the games right now because you just got that, those weekends, you're just having the best weekend ever. And it gets to about Sunday at 5:30 and you're like, oh man, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon. And you start thinking about real life the next day. That's what I feel like right now at the end of the NFL playoffs. I know they say one of these Mondays is the most depressing day of the year. I don't know who they were talking about. It's the Monday after the Super Bowl or Tuesday after the Super Bowl, maybe if your team won it. That's the longest day of the year for football fans and people that love to throw down on Coolbet.
I love that you think that either of us live in the real world. We talk about sports and bet on sports all day. Does somebody have a factory job that I'm unaware of around here?
Well, I'm just speaking more about the amount of time we have to go without the NFL. Because to be honest, I mean, I think we've all been dealing with a whole bunch of BS and, the inability to do a lot of the things that we normally have done. Heck, we haven't had a home game with fans here for like 6 weeks.
I got a question about that in Winnipeg. I see like 75 people. Who are these people that are in the building? A buddy of mine posted on Facebook that he was there, and he's nobody special.
Yeah, well, you know what they did was they said, everyone, if you had season tickets, you're getting refunded for the games. And then they said that we have 200, or our maximum, we're allowed to have 250 fans in. So if you wanted to get tickets, you just put your name in. And I'm not sure how they determined it. I think they just sort of drew 125 season ticket holders and said, all right, here are your tickets. Here's where they are. And they went. So it was strange, though. I mean, I saw a dude in the Vancouver Canucks tights last night at the game. And there was even a couple people that were in Panther gear at the game on Tuesday. And I'm not sure whether that was maybe a family or ticket through the team or something like that. But bottom line is, I don't really know, Chris. We're getting new health orders today, and hopefully some common sense will prevail. We might at least get to 50% going forward, but I don't even know about this. And God knows I don't like to wade into these waters because, as we all know, that can it's a hot button topics here in Canada right now. I just want to be able to get back to watching the games. Although a lot of people are in Winnipeg not too upset that they weren't able to use their tickets and got refunded on Tuesday and Thursday, because tell you what, we were having a lot of fun chuckling at what was happening in Edmonton for the last month or so. Well, they've won 3 in a row right now. And if you're looking for the hot spot in the National Hockey League right now, it just happens to be smack dab in the middle of Canada.
I know things the vibe's not too high in Winnipeg right now with the Jets, but I really wanted to talk about, before we dive into this crazy sports weekend, I wanted to dive in with, Winnipeg Sports Talk and how you started this thing. And, you're kind of a trendsetter, because now we're seeing this movement of streaming. And yes, we saw a little bit of that going on in the States, but in terms of Canada, yourself and Dustin Nelson, really were leading the charge with this. Kind of just tell the folks who maybe aren't familiar with how Winnipeg Sports Talk started and how things are going.
Sure. Well, just to back up even before Winnipeg Sports Talk, Dusty and I, Dusty, of course, is with TSN in Edmonton. I was the longtime afternoon drive guy here in Winnipeg on TSN 1290, and we had met at drafts beforehand and sort of got to know each other. And we'd been talking about doing something, relating to sports betting. And we ended up launching the Lock Shop right at the beginning of last year. We had planned to do it at the start of the season, but I had some issues that took me out of the game for a few months, but we got it going right around the new year, and we're having a great time doing it. And then ironically, as we had a certain corporate Let's Talk day earlier this week, that predicated them shutting down our station and firing everybody in early February. So at that point, it was time to figure out what to do next. And, unlike, maybe Vancouver, where there was another station, albeit that has not really picked up what 1040 was doing, we knew that, our show was really popular, had a big following. And bottom line is, Winnipeg is a sports crazy city. People obsess about the Jets. They absolutely love the Blue Bombers, and we were on such a high with the Blue Bombers being Grey Cup champs that I really did believe that one way or the other, somebody was going to come into this space and provide daily sports content for people in Winnipeg. And, I realized that, with my experience from what I'd done before, as well as sort of starting this entire thing with Gary Lawless back 10 years ago ourselves, which led to, the long run on TSN, that there was, certainly there was the interest from the business community to support it. There was definitely the demand for the content, and it was just trying to figure out how we would deliver it every day. And originally we were planning on just doing it as a podcast every day. We'd record it and get it out in time for 3:00. It was in people's inboxes when they normally listen to us on the afternoon ride. And my partner, Michael Remus, who's sort of the brains of the operation as far as getting us on the air, and kind of joked that he's the CTO. He basically said, he was like, if we're doing this anyways, we got to put it on YouTube. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. If we're going to be doing it, that's fine with me. And I kind of thought we might have 10 or 20 keeners that would pop in. It's blown my mind. Really from day one, the amount of people that come in every day on our YouTube feed sort of created a space for the Winnipeg sports community to come in and chat with each other. And it's gone so well beyond our wildest dreams. And I got to thank Kris for jumping on. Obviously he had worked with us back in the TSN days, but one of the guys that supported us right off the bat. But just coming up to our first anniversary, couldn't imagine having a better first year. And Remus and I joke that we're in a better spot than we've ever been before. That being said, I'm cognizant that there's a lot of other people, unfortunately, that lost jobs and aren't doing things, and this city still misses a 24-hour sports station. But we've been able to find our niche, and it's been growing. The support's been amazing from people, and can't wait for year two, to be honest with you. If only our hockey team would give us some more pleasant topics to talk about right now. But I can tell you the chat's going to be fire this afternoon after that game last night. So, overall, we, saw an opportunity that, unfortunately, we were sort of forced into, but have made the best of it. And yeah, I really do think that they're, depending on what happens with these big companies and how they handle the certain stations. Bottom line is sports content is expensive. Because you need people to do it. And if you want good people, you have to pay good people. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be a priority for some of the people in the game right now. So as this happens, I think we'll probably see more similar situations of Winnipeg Sports Talk in other markets, specifically focusing on the stuff that people in that area want to see. And I'll tell you what, all I can say is that the response that we've had from people here in Winnipeg, both listeners and certainly sponsors, has been overwhelming. And, it's gone better than we could have imagined. And as I said, onwards and upwards into year two coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, I think the future is online here. It costs so much to run a linear TV station. So obviously for broadcasts and things like that, like you need the power of those stations, and there'll always be a place. But listen, our business is fully online. Our marketing strategy is mostly online. When you see, when you watch a hockey game in Canada right now, you're bombarded with advertisements for free to play gambling websites. And listen, that's one strategy. I don't know that it's the best one. I think it's easy to spend money on advertising dollars, but I think it's the way of the future is to be online, get direct to, in our case, our customer, Hustler, in your case, your viewer, your fan, and it cuts out the middleman, right? And, unfortunately, that does result in some job losses from time to time. But, 20 years ago, there wasn't the ability to run your own daily show. You had to rely on somebody with the equipment and the access and the ability to push that out. And now we all have it. Just this platform we're recording on right now, called StreamYard. It's unbelievable, the technology. So, it's a very much adapt or die industry, and you've adapted very, very well.
Well, I appreciate it. And, just as far as working with Coolbet, ever since you reached out to me knowing that I was big into this and said, hey, check out our site. And I started playing there religiously because the golf odds were the best. I just found, comparing it to other books. Obviously, P. Greggy, I know you're doing a lot of golf wagers as well. The one thing that stood out to me right off the bat was the value. And, listen, as someone that actually does this every day, you don't want to be getting into bed or promoting to people that support you and care about with an inferior product or something that you don't do yourself. So, obviously seeing the format that Coolbet has, and the bottom line is the value that they were providing, not to mention the customer service, it was so great to get working with Coolbet to begin with. And then, to have the ability to, instead of having to roll things through 3 levels of management and finally get things greenlit, to be able to go and talk about the Coolbet lines every day and make bets on the show and stuff like that and do what we're doing. Listen, it's just been such an awesome partnership so far. And as I said, Kris, to your point about the ability to broadcast yourself, when we went out and did the shows and all the content from the Olympic curling trials in Saskatoon, like I said, I'm not the most tech savvy guy, and Remus wasn't able to go, but we bought some equipment, went out there and actually was able to pull it off. And now going into year 2, if we're going to go to the draft or go to Grey Cup week next year, or heck, go to the Scotties, whatever we're going to do, we really, as long as we have an Ethernet cable to plug in and some power, we'll be able to produce a, really good show and a really good product. But at the end of the day, the content is the king, right? And you want to have fun guys talking about the topics that people want to say, and obviously work with good people. And between what we started with Winnipeg Sports Talk, the support of Coolbet, and just basically it being a genuine, it's the easiest thing to talk about, because as I said, we talk about the stuff when the mics aren't on too. It's in some ways it's the best job in the world, because for me at least, and a lot of the content we do, it comes so naturally. I joke that we'd be doing this stuff at a bar top somewhere if we weren't doing it in the afternoon with a microphone in front of us.
Yeah, jokes on the people who are paying us to do it, right?
Yeah.
The dogs are barking, though. The dogs are barking. Do you guys hear that? The dogs are barking.
Do you hear that? The dogs are barking. That's bad news.
That's from San Francisco, not from Cincinnati.
Sorry, guys. I just have one. Hold on. Can I have one quick thing
go
for Huss?
Absolutely.
Huss, you had a monster guest on this past week. How did that all come about? Tell the people who it was. Tell them what you talked about. I saw it. Not that I couldn't believe it, because you are the Hustler, but I thought it was crazy when I saw that name. Why don't you tell people who that was?
Yeah, you know what? Absolute all-time thrill. We had Jerry Rice on the program to, and the timing of it. Just coming off that incredible weekend, heading into championship weekend where his 49ers are in it, was thrill of a lifetime, was huge for the show. A guy from a communications company that we had done a lot of work with in the past, specifically for DFS, reached out to me. And, I think, there's a lot of people that we worked with in the past that have sort of been paying attention to what we've been doing in this new space and the success that we've been having. And, they had, it's one of those things where DraftKings had Rice on. I guess he's in their commercial for the actual Super Bowl. So he was doing NFL Network and he was doing Jim Rome's show. And he texted us and said, hey, guys, we got about a 10 to 15 minute window if you can pull something off at 11 in the morning. And we were like, yeah, we can. And, with those things, you never really know that they're going to happen until they do. And we're sitting there and all of a sudden, boom, Jerry Rice enters the room. And he was so awesome. You can check that out. It was Wednesday's Winnipeg Sports Talk. Just go to YouTube and check it out. Or go to our Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. I think we put it up as a standalone as well. And I was just an absolute thrill. And he came on, he talked about a bunch of things, obviously about the games last week, the quarterback play. He's pretty geeked about his Niners with another chance to beat the Rams on the weekend. And the most interesting thing that he said, though, I asked him about the Niners and about defense and special teams and how that was so important to winning, and in particular the way they had been winning. And he mentioned that back in his career, he would go to special teams meetings, even though he wasn't on the team, to, I guess, show how important it was to the team and to their success that he bought in. I just found it really interesting. But I got to give a shout out to Greg McIsaac, who kind of threw us a bit of a bone. He had been following us and thought of us when they had an extra 15 minutes for the best guy to ever catch a pass in the National Football League. And to be honest, a guy that many people would say is the best damn football player that ever played in the NFL.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I saw that, I could believe it. Like Jake said, you are the hustler. You can reel in those guests, but awesome guests for sure. And you know what? That's obviously you guys are doing right. If they're barking up your tree, you got big communications companies.
Well, I'll say this, and part of it is, listen, relationships. It doesn't matter what business you're in, are really important. And we were lucky enough, starting sort of independently, Lawless and myself, when we went from CJOB in Winnipeg to start the new station, because we had done it on our own the year before. We sort of built in that if we were going to go to the station, we need to be able to continue doing the things we've been doing. And one of those was going to the Super Bowl on Radio Row. So we did, I think, 6 Super Bowls where we'd go for the entire week, set up on Radio Row. And that experience was, listen, it was the best week of the year. It's incredibly fun. You're in an awesome place. You're talking about the big game. You're getting guests that you would never normally do that, have the opportunity to talk to, but you're also able to sort of connect with people and getting back there the year after. And then a third year, you start to get to know some of these folks. So that was huge for us, kind of getting to know some of the people that can make some of this stuff happen. And now with everything so different, I mean, Radio Row really hasn't happened very much for the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Many of these people are pivoting, and it was quite advantageous to have relationships with a couple of them before. And we'll see whether we can make something happen as we get closer to the big game, because I do think that a lot of the tours that people would take of their big stars or whatever on Radio Row normally probably isn't going to be happening this year, because of the pandemic, and frankly because of where the industry is with the amount of people that are sent. I mean, there was a time when you couldn't even get a spot on Radio Row, and just even during the times we were there, we saw people kind of, it got a little bit smaller, and that just came down to expenditures and costs, and unfortunately that cost a lot of people in there. But hopefully we'll get up there again when we get back to normal, maybe next year.
Absolutely. You mentioned the big game. It's coming up, but there's 2 games to get to before there. I mentioned it is a wild sports weekend. We have so much going on, but NFL rules all. It's the big daddy.
It's been there for us throughout the pandemic. That's the one thing. The NFL saved us. The NHL would shut down. Everything else would happen. And even in the darkest times of this last pandemic, there was a couple games moved, and we get a Tuesday game. We have one day without NFL football a week. And people give the NFL a lot of shit for a lot of things that they do. But I will say I will always be thankful for the way they powered through for the last couple of years. And man, we got a couple of good ones on the weekend.
Absolutely. Let's start things off with your Chiefs right now. They're favorites by -1.5. You can get that at -103 at Coolbet Canada. If you're looking to grab the Bengals, they're obviously +7.5 at -1.5. Or if you think the dogs are barking, you can get them at +280. The total for the game is 54.5. Huss, we're not going to talk about last week. There's no need. We're focusing on the future, That's in the rear view. But no, in all honesty, that was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. Obviously heartbroken, still heartbroken. But I think it's safe to say that Chiefs that we are used to seeing, that we haven't seen too often this year, they're back, and Patrick Mahomes is certainly back.
Yeah, that I mean, what an all-time game. And I got to give a shout out to the Mafia. Love the Bills fans and that team, really. I mean, such an easy team to cheer for, and a group of people. I mean, being from a smaller market that's dealt with a lot of losing for a long time, you like those stories of teams that are supported the way they are during the down times and get back to being real legitimate contenders. And as far as, it's a quarterback league. I don't know whether we've ever had two quarterbacks play the way they did on Sunday. That being said, listen, I was high on the Chiefs coming into this season. I thought that, the loss in the Super Bowl would really poise them to, come in and dominate the league this year. And it didn't happen. I mean, we all remember the first 7 weeks of the season. The Chiefs defense was horrible. The offense looked disjointed, and they looked nothing like the team that we'd seen in the last couple of seasons go to back-to-back Super Bowls. A few things changed. I mean, the acquisition of Melvin Ingram, I think, is an underrated add by the Chiefs that really made a huge difference on the defensive side of the football. Got a few guys back healthy, and all of a sudden the defense in the second half of the year was one of the best in the National Football League. On the weekend, we saw Patrick Mahomes at the height of his powers. And I maintain that when he's at his best, he maybe is playing at as high a level as anyone's ever played in the National Football League. And that's what it took to beat the Bills. I mean, I'll tell you what, this rivalry going forward is going to be it's going to be a treat for fans, even if you have no skin in the game and don't cheer for either club. And I was on Dusty's show actually heading into the playoffs, and he asked me from a Chiefs perspective, who's the team that makes you the most nervous? And I was very quick to say the Buffalo Bills. So it's been a huge hump that they got over. But I'll tell you what, this Bengals team is an incredible story as well. Speaking of teams that have been, suffering from decades of losing, what an exciting time for that city. And Joe Burrow is one of the coolest dudes you've ever seen. And a big game player as well. I just sort of feel that it's a great time for the Chiefs to be playing the Bengals because they just lost to them. I mean, 3 weeks ago. The funny thing is, in the Final Four, they lost to the Titans, they lost to the Bills, they lost to the Bengals, and getting a chance to maybe right a few of those wrong. So, I think they passed the ultimate test on the weekend. They're at 7, so it's 7.5 point favorite for a reason. And I think that they'll be ready. And listen, the defense is going to have to figure out how to do something about Jamar Chase. Spags there, the defensive coordinator, was so aggressive on the blitzing. And, they just kept on putting him out in single coverage, and they got burned repeatedly in week 17. And that cost the Chiefs the number 1 seed. So I think they'll be very prepared. And, the losses earlier in the season and being pushed to the brink by the Buffalo Bills last week, I think can only make them more formidable going into this game and hopefully the game in a few weeks in LA.
Jake, I know you're when you're looking into handicapping games or just even enjoying the game, you always look into the previous matchups. That's one thing that you always like to dive into. Do you think we can see a repeat here with the Bengals, or have the Chiefs learned their lesson and they're just rolling right now and they're going to continue rolling all the way to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think the lesson they need to learn is the fact that they can't let Jamar Chase beat them. Make someone else beat you. Make a T. Higgins beat you. Make a Tyler Boyd beat you. Uzama, whatever it is. But don't let Jamar Chase beat you. 266 receiving yards in their last meeting. 3 touchdowns. Burrow threw for 446 and 4 touchdowns. That can't happen if the Chiefs want to win this game. I mean, maybe it can. We saw what happened last week, but it's not a recipe for success in my eyes. You got to shut down Chase. You got to limit him. Even if he goes for half that number, I think you're in a better position than the 266 he went for last time. But we know Mahomes can really throw with anybody. I mean, he can throw with anybody. He's the guy. We saw what happened last week. But both defenses struggle against the pass, bottom of the league all season. We saw what Allen was able to do last week against that Chiefs defense. I'm looking at a high total in this one again. Last meeting was 34-31. I'm looking at something similar. I don't think you could set this number high enough for me. I'm taking the over no matter what.
I'll say this. Yeah. I'll say this about this game. And this is why maybe I'll kind of take the other side as far as, another day of just, we're so used to these teams scoring and the number is what it is. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times last week. I mean, if they can't keep him upright, I mean, I don't know what the path to victory is for them. And I think this could be a situation when we sort of assume that it's going to be all fireworks. But, depending on how things are played, I mean, since he didn't even the Bengals won a game without putting up 20 points. So listen, I'm not sure whether we'll have the fireworks from the Chiefs side that we saw against the Bills, although the Bills are the number one defense. I mean, if you can do it against them, you would think that you'd be able to do it against anyone. But from Cincinnati's perspective, I mean, before we even get to getting the ball to Jamar Chase, I mean, you got to figure out what the heck's going on the offensive line, because if Joe Burrow's consistently, in 2nd and 17 and 2nd and 18, that's not a way to win on the road in Arrowhead in what is going to be another crazy atmosphere where it'll be very difficult for, him to hear. But I will say this, though, Jake, and you mentioned this, Joe Burrow is so poised that, he's as equipped as any second-year quarterback, I think, to handle the environment. I'm just not sure he gets the chance to do that if they can't keep him upright, because it certainly didn't happen last week. And it's almost a miracle they were able to win a game with their quarterback getting sacked 9 times.
That miracle could have been a man named Ryan Tannehill, who just is addicted to throwing interceptions. You can't start a game. And JD Bunkus came onto this show and was giving him high praises, saying, "Oh, he's not that bad." First throw of the game, I text him, Tannehill might be that bad. So that's the thing with the Bengals. There is no margin for mistake. They're not going to get gifts, just handed to them. And I think this is going to be a tougher task for them. I'm with you, Jake, though. I do think that this number still does get over. A little bet builder that I like, that I just kind of put together as we were chatting there. Chiefs just to win. Mahomes over 300 passing yards. Jamar Chase to score a touchdown, plus 400. You can get that at the Coolbet builder. I see how can that not hit? That's
I don't mind that, Pete Greg.
Kris, what are you leaning towards this game, or how do you even see this game playing out?
Well, there's some good conversation happening here, and I'm trying to figure out what I think is going to happen here. I'm looking right now at just the Bengals scores during the year. And so here's how I got to this point. I'm thinking, I don't know what I think about the spread or the total or whatever. So then I started looking at team totals, and the Bengals team total is 23.5. And initially, like Jake is saying, I thought, well, that seems like something they'll sail over. But when I look at games where they played a team with a competent front seven, right? So they scored 19 last week. They lost twice to the Browns and were kept under 20 points in both of those games, right? A good front seven there. They scored 15 against the Broncos. So yeah, there's a theme here. And the theme is, you got to protect Joe Burrow because of the front sevens getting to him. The game against the Bears, they had a low score as well. They scored 17. So I might be inclined here actually to take under the team total for the Bengals. And I might have just talked myself into a Chiefs spread.
There you go. I mean, maybe I'm just trying to galaxy brain here. I even think just watching that offense, and even if, the Bengals lay an egg, they don't protect Burrow, I still think that the Chiefs are so good offensively, they can get to that total. All the Bengals have to do is maybe score 14 points there. And I think that Kansas City, the way that offense is humming right now, they can still get over that total. I'm probably just talking myself into it, but I that's where I think I'm going to lean. It's going to be a great game. I think we should just sit back and enjoy, two quarterbacks in the AFC. Like the AFC, the quarterbacks play that we're going to see over the next few years is ridiculous. And Jake, I know you're smiling. Don't put Mac Jones in that conversation. He's not there yet. Okay, he's not there.
He's been 1 year, man. Well,
you guys are ready to crown him the next Tom Brady because he took him a good game.
He was there.
Bill took
a good
him
game.
To the playoffs.
Oh my god,
that defense.
Bill couldn't take Cam to the playoffs. I mean, there's definitely something about having a competent quarterback. I think he's competent enough.
He is, absolutely. But let's pump the brakes on crowning.
You're the one who brought it up.
Tom Brady. Because I knew that little smirk on your face. That's exactly what you were thinking.
You know what? We need to get Kris and I out. We'll bring a Jets fan in and bring someone from Tuanon supporting the Dolphins, and you guys can just have a big AFC East bitch fest about the quarterbacks going forward. Listen, that's the one thing the Bills can be happy about. They certainly do have the best quarterback in that division right now, but
that's until Deshaun Watson goes to the Dolphins, right?
Oh God, please no.
Well,
please no.
See
if that's the case, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
If that's the case. That's fun new team, I think.
All right. Well, there is what we have for the AFC. Now flipping to the NFC, this one, I think I'm even more excited to watch this game than I am with the AFC. And that's not just because I'm going to have flashbacks of 13 seconds going the entire game, but these two teams, I mean, when you look on paper, you look at the preseason rankings, you think the Rams, by far, much superior, talented team. But the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan absolutely own the Rams. Jimmy G has never lost to the Rams before. I can't even remember the last time the 49ers have even beaten the Rams. I think it's 6 straight games.
Yeah.
That it's been. This has been completely just utter domination. And you can throw out, it's tough to beat a team, 3 times in a season. It's tough to beat them 2 times in a season. Well, if you have a formula that works, I think it might work. And now it's sounding like I am leaning towards going with San Fran. I think this is going to be a super, super close game. But where are you leaning towards this one, Kris?
Listen, I'm not allowed to bet on Sean McVay. That's just I've painted myself into that corner now, and it can't happen.
And Stafford, and Stafford, you're quite against that too.
If you go back in the annals of history, you'll see that I said Matt Stafford was a potential MVP candidate this year and comeback player of the year. I do like Matt Stafford, but listen, the Rams have looked really, really, really good the last 2 weeks, right? Like you take out in
the first half.
Yeah, maybe that's the bet then. Maybe that's the Rams first half is the bet.
Nice, yes.
They're minus 2.5. Actually, it's probably not bad. The thing is, take the Brady comeback attempt and the fact that they were doing the Andre the Giant gif, like whoa, they're doing that one, but they. They got out of there. So I don't know. So my brain is telling me the Rams are going to win this game and cover just based on how they've been. And I have no faith in Jimmy Garoppolo. They need to find a way to stop Deebo Samuel, man. That's basically what it comes down to for me. Like if they can contain Deebo Samuel, then they'll be fine. The pass rush is going to get to Jimmy G. That's going to happen. Is Deebo able to get outside, and is he able to get past Von Miller and Aaron Donald? That's what this game comes down to for me. And can Travis Kelce break away from a tackle and maybe get him a couple of big gains? That's what it is for me. Maybe I'll just do both favorites in a money line parlay this weekend. Maybe that's what I'll do. I don't know.
I'll say this about this game, and you sort of mentioned that it's been 6 in a row, and it's just sort of wild. Sean McVay is owned right now by Kyle Shanahan. And the more ironic thing about this entire matchup is that the last week of the season, in week 18, the Rams were at home where this game is being played. They were up 17-0 at the 2-minute warning of the first half. And if they hold on to win that game, we're not talking about the Niners because they don't make the playoffs and the Saints end up getting in. That comeback was devastating to the Rams. And I think that it shook them. But it also gave the Niners a lot of momentum that it doesn't matter if Jimmy G is playing like Pat Mahomes, because that ain't happening. They find ways to win. And, it's amazing that, we're getting a rematch of that last week of the season in the same building. And you would think, guys, that the Rams are good enough, that they are due, that it's got to be time for them to beat San Francisco. But I got to tell you, I mean, the way they played in the second half against Tampa Bay, which almost looked like some sort of WWE-style scripted, incredible comeback. You wonder if this team has what it takes to, put the full 60 minutes against real quality opposition and close the deal, because they almost didn't do it despite, listen, I still can't get over what happened in the second half last week. And as someone that has, been betting against Brady and was all over the Rams on the weekend, the thought that game might have disappeared was was stomach churning, to be honest. But I don't know. Did they learn? Did they escape that and get a lot of it out? I think some people would say that would be the case. But I'll tell you what, I mean, when you look at these teams, the way they play, the way they match up, what has happened for 3 straight years, including 2 weeks ago, it's hard to just say, this is going to be the Rams' time. I mean, the amount of times, Kris, that we've been on the Rams in the lock shop in big games and primetime games, and they blew it this year, was enough. Well, we were all reminded of it in the second half of that game on Sunday. So, it's not like the Niners offensively did anything to inspire confidence going into this game, but the way the Rams played and barely held on in that game, a game that should have been over 5 minutes into the second half, makes this as interesting a championship game going into it for a long time. Never mind the history of these teams, just in how they got there and how shaky both of them were in getting to with one game of the Super Bowl.
Jake, are you kind of on the same page here? I think we all are having a hard time getting past the historical relevance between these two teams, because there's always those trends of even with the Bengals, they've never lost a conference game. Well, they haven't played a conference game since the 80s, so that doesn't work. But we have tangible evidence that these two coaches, when they meet, there is a clear advantage, and it is leaning towards Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Do you think that's the case? Or are the Rams going to finally break through here and punch their ticket to the Super Bowl?
Maybe Shanahan has something on McVay, because I don't know, maybe he's blackmailing him into blowing these games. What is going on in a scenario where you lose to the same team, 6 in a row now, to a quarterback that's, Jimmy G's, he's won games, but I think last week they were showing this stat, 0 touchdowns thrown. He's 9-2. How does that even happen? And I think he's a former Pat. Obviously, is a guy that I liked when he was on the Patriots, and then you see him go to another team. He goes to a Super Bowl and probably a couple throws away from winning a Super Bowl against the Chiefs. I don't know. It's hard to fade the the Niners in this spot, especially when you get the hook there with the half point on the 3. I don't know. It's a tough game for me. I don't really know how to look at it. I think I should almost look at it as, okay, Rams at 3.5. Maybe this is the point in time where they finally get over that hump and beat the Niners. They have an opportunity to play out of their home stadium in the Super Bowl, which we would see for a second year in a row after Tampa did it last year.
Yeah.
I think Tampa was the first team ever to win at home in a Super Bowl. Imagine we had back-to-back years after never having it in the history of the NFL. How crazy would that be? Storylines all over the board, but yeah, I definitely do lean Niners in this one, just based on historical reference, like you said.
I'm sitting on a nice 10-1 Niners to win the NFC future that I got on. I want to say, and it was relatively late in the season, like week 17, or it was sort of like they looked like they were probably going to be in the playoffs, and they were going on. And I always joke that hedging is for gardeners. I'm not really someone that goes in and bets a lot on the other side of the bet, but I had considered it going into this game. But it's such a weird position to be in with the Niners. It's essentially a Niners money line bet at 10-1. But if you want to take the Rams, you're still laying 3.5. Or if you want to take the money line on the other side of that, it's -172. So I am somewhat clouded by a large financial interest in the Niners getting this done again. But hey, it all goes back to week 18. I was in the same situation needing this to happen. And lo and behold, the Niners are still standing.
Here's what you do, Huss. You take whatever you're comfortable losing, and you bet it on the Rams +3.5, so you can get both those bets. That's your hedge. That's your hedge. It's -286. So this is what I did last week. Okay, I had a four leg underdog teaser. So it came down. I needed the Bills +7 to cash it. So I turned around and I dumped whatever I had that I felt comfortable losing. I was still going to make a profit on KC +7 and a little bit on the KC money line. And that's actually what saved me on the week. But you have an opportunity there, like, if you win the 10-1, great. So take 2 or 3 of those units and put them on Rams plus 3.5 or a little bit extra, and see if you can scoop the middle. That's what I do in that situation.
Right on.
That's why you listen to guys like Kris. You can call him mush or anything like that, but that is a smart brain, because I wouldn't be able to think of that at all. No chance. My brain doesn't think that way.
Well, the 49ers win, you win your ticket. The Rams win, you win you've got your hedge. And you could get both.
I like it.
If the 49ers win by 3 or less, then you're golden.
There you go.
That's the perfect scenario.
And if they're gonna win, it's gonna be a close game, you gotta think.
Yeah. And I think now that we're all kind of leaning, 49ers kind of scares me. But even if I do roll with the Rams, Huss, you said that hook, I know what's going to happen. They're going to win by a field goal, and I'm going to ram my head through a wall, because I can just envision that happen. They get over the hump. But as you mentioned, futures tickets, I do have a ticket right now. I believe it's 11-1 for the Rams to win the Super Bowl. If it was a literal physical copy, I probably would have ripped it after week 6 or 7, because what they turned into, it was brutal. But now we're starting to see that team that we started to see, at the start of the season. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, you can get all those odds and more. And we mentioned the Bet Builder. Certainly check that out. Those are always fun for the playoff games, the games that are only on prime time. And we'll also a little bit of a preview for next week for the Super Bowl. If you like Bet Builders, keep your eye out for a promotion coming up in a couple of weeks for the big game with our Bet Builder. Before we get going on to some curling talk, guys, is there anything we want to touch on with the NFL? Are we good?
Well, the one thing I want to ask you guys, if anyone has a feel, it's interesting because this game, like the Chiefs Bengals, has been solid at 7 all week. And just for the first time as we started, I've seen that it's moved to 7.5. The Niner line has been Niners plus 3.5, although laying like minus 120. Now it's at minus 122. Do any of you guys see these lines moving at all as we get closer to Sunday? And if we do, which way do you think they go?
Well, I know the bookies don't want to mess around with crossing that number, because then they're leaving themselves open to it landing on 3 or landing on 7. So that's why you see kind of the big the juice climbing up for the 49ers. If anything, you'll probably see the Bengals tick back down to 7, but it's possible that the 49ers and Rams land on 3. It probably already has at some places. I know at Coolbet, the guys like to keep it at a half line as long as they can. So, but the price is creeping. The price is creeping. It tells you that people are coming in on the Niners too, right?
I was going to say that. Do you have numbers? Like, what's the split right now on Rams and the Niner action in the NFC game?
You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll figure it out.
Because I'll say this about this game. I mean, I think while it's sitting there at 3.5, and this is a big reason why we're looking at minus 120, minus 122, it almost seems as if, if you have no skin in the game, like, hey, this is going to be real close. I mean, you naturally will take the hook and jump on that plus 3.5. And I would say this now. I mean, again, now that the AFC game has gone to 7.5, I think there'll be a lot of people that once you get off that number, they're going to be going to Cincinnati. So I kind of do agree with Kris that we might see that get back to 7. This game, though, is so interesting for all the reasons that we mentioned. I think if anything, we probably just see the number associated, the odd number associated with the 3.5 changing, because if they wanted to have it at 3, they could have done that a long time ago, because that's essentially what this tells us at minus 122 and plus money on the Rams at minus 3.5.
So I can tell you that we've actually taken more bets on the Rams, more money on the 49ers overall. And then if I look at some of our, shall we call them VIP players and what they have bet, we have probably people waiting. Yeah, not as many, but those guys are on the 49ers a little bit more than the Rams.
And Huss, I wonder where you stand on this. And I presented the question on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. If you see a number like a 3.5 Rams or even 7.5 Chiefs, and say you like the favorite side, do you buy the hook in that situation? Personally, I like to buy the hook and get the clean number at 3 or 7. But I'm just curious how you look at a situation like that.
You know what? I consider it. I mean, it all just comes down to the situation. I mean, if I'm very nervous about it, I will do it. I mean, it's certainly something that I do. And at times, I'll even, for games that are 3, we'll sometimes take it to 2.5. Just hoping to, I don't mind paying a little bit more for an actual win instead of a push. If, you have those games that you really do expect, will come down to a field goal. And I always think of this. I especially go on that strategy when we're talking about those divisional games. I mean, these AFC North games going head to head, some of the games in the AFC East, to be honest with you, maybe, not including the Buffalo Bills. When you see that, it's 3 or so, just try and get that down a little bit so that, you can avoid a push and still feel pretty good about where you're at. But, I just think in some situations you feel it's a lot more important than others. And again, sometimes you'll see a number, and if you're really strong on a team, I don't mind, giving another 2 or 3 points and trying to get it at, plus 150 or plus 160 if you're feeling pretty good about a team and you don't think it's reflected in what the line is, or you just realize that you're playing against a very public team and are probably getting a better number. May as well put it what you think the number really should be and get plus 140 as opposed to just doing whatever everyone else is doing at minus 109 or minus 110.
There you go. Some more. This is why you listen in. This is why you listen in. My brain just not thinking that way. Although I always buy the hook for whatever reason, not so much with NFL, but whenever it comes to college football, I seem to always want to buy the hook. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's superstition like we were talking earlier, but I always just feel a lot more comfortable. I just always feel like if I have the favorite, especially when there are those crazy big spreads, the odds are always pretty spot on. Now, I think Kris is still looking to see what the numbers are, but before we get to that, just wanted to say that our friends over at Covers, they do a great job comparing odds in the market. And right now, if you're looking to bet the over in the San Fran LA game, or if you're looking to bet the Rams, that's going to be your best value, hands down, not even close. So this is, again, Huss, you mentioned it, value seems to be every time you log on to covers.com, one of those games on the docket. It seems that Coolbet is giving you the best value.
Absolutely. No, it's this. I'm just looking at these numbers, thinking more about these games, and I'm just getting excited for the lock shop, excited for the show, and excited for kickoff on Sunday afternoon.
I think the more we're talking about it too is the more I'm flip-flopping back and forth. So let's put a bow on the NFL. Let's get to, and I know you already said it, you and Kris are fired up, but Jake and I are starting to become a little bit of rockheads ourselves. We're starting to really enjoy the curling. And this Scotties tournament, I know it's not, there's no Jen Jones, Rachel Homan, also in the Olympics. So we're not seeing some of the best, but I think this actually kind of opens up the field. Yes, Carrie Einerson's rink looking for a three-peat. There is no shortage of storyline. So we'll start with you, Huss. What are you most looking forward to for this year's Scotties?
Well, I'll tell you what, being from the heartland of the curling world here in Winnipeg, it's really cool to have 3 Manitoba teams. You got the former junior champs, Mackenzie Zacharias of the Manitoba. They're 26-1. You've got Carrie Anderson, who of course is representing Team Canada as the defending champ, as the favorite at plus 168. But the most interesting team is Wildcard 1, and that's Tracy Fleury's club, which has been the number 1 team in the world all year long. Ended up losing on the final rock in the extra end of the Olympic trials to Jen Jones. And they've come in as right now their team's plus 450. But Kris and I were talking about this before. There's been some wild line movement, on them dropping big time, but as well as their top 3. And, you're kind of looking around and searching for reasons for this. And there hasn't been anything kind of publicly out there. You hope everything is okay with the club. But all things being equal, the fact that, a plus 450 odds to win is plus 171 to make the top 3, while Northern Ontario plus 495 and plus 102 for top 3. That number for Fleury in the top 3 just stands out like it's like a siren in the middle of it. Now, again, there might be more to it, but it's a long tournament, and they're good enough, even if they're missing a player or they've got some sort of an issue. I think that they're in a good enough spot that they'll be there in the playoffs, and to be there in the top 3, I think there's some great value on that, unless all of a sudden there's some breaking news which tells us why all of a sudden that number's gone from about even money to plus 171.
Well, it might still be a good time to bet it. So the news is, and it was officially announced since we've started doing this or just before, that Tracy Fleury is one of the athletes that tested positive for COVID before the start of the tournament. The kicker on that is, though, she's got plenty of time to test negative and could rejoin the team by as early as the first weekend. So I'm not too worried about her and her team in that case. Like, they're still a top-notch team, right? Obviously, she's the skip, and that's obviously a massive. But if she can get into the playoffs, then she's going to be fine, you got to think. So when you're looking at that group, you've got Krista McCarville, Tracy Fleury, Emma Miskew is Team Holman, but obviously Rachel's not there, so Emma is wildcard 3, and then Chelsea Carey. So, you got 4 very capable teams. I got to think Fleury is one of the 3 of those to come out of it. And I think you're right. I think it's still a good time to bet them top 3 at plus 171 and to win at plus 450. And looking at this, it's Carey Anderson's tournament to lose at this point. I mean, she's still plus 168, and that's an awful lot to bet on a future. But I mean, if you really wanted to, one that I like is Carey Anderson, even money to win her group. You got Laura Walker and then a whole lot of other teams in that group. And I think for them at even money, like if you wanted to put down a decent bet on her to win that group isn't probably not bad at all.
Group A.
I love that. The Anderson team is, they are so good. Although when the odds originally came out, they were the second favorite. It was Tracy Fleury, and their body of work speaks for itself. But you do wonder how they recover from the most devastating loss of their career, especially from a skip's perspective, back on the big stage. Although I think the lack of fans might actually help Tracy Fleury in this situation sort of move over on that. But Carey Anderson's team, so decorated. They had a pretty good run at the Olympic trials, but just fell short before getting into that, kind of in the play into the playoffs. So, certainly I think they are the team to beat right now by the odds. But to me, those 2 teams, all things being equal, should probably be around the same number. But we're seeing a big discrepancy between Anderson and Tracy Fleury's team. The other wild cards are interesting, though. Chelsea Carey. She's played with a lot of different people. She is a shot maker and, can turn a loss into a win. I think there'll be some value on that team on the individual draws for sure. And Kris, I'm fascinated to see what the girls do without Rachel.
I know, me too.
Obviously, her and Emma Miskew have been, this team that's been connected forever, but the rest of that team's played together for a long time. And I'll tell you what, it's a huge opportunity for Emma Miskew to sort of maybe step out of the shadow, if you will, although we always associate those 2 together. And, some pretty interesting numbers when you look at that team. If you think, just like almost 2-1 to be top 3. And plus 880 to win. I'm not sure whether they take the entire thing down, but I'm very interested to see what the Coolbet girls can do when we get going on the weekend.
Well, I was speaking to Emma this week. She's super excited about this, and she's timid. Like Rachel's the tough as nails, which actually after getting to know her, she's not. But she's got that demeanor.
She looks like
she's got the killer. She's got the killer instinct on the ring.
Yeah, maybe she doesn't want me to. Maybe she's. I don't want to ruin her image, ruin the gimmick. But Emma's. I should say, I said Emma's timid. I said she appears timid because she's not. She works harder than anybody to be good at this sport. And I'm really curious to see what she does given the reins. Also the other thing, the pressure's off. There's no pressure on these girls right now. Ontario took away their right to represent the province. Like nobody's giving them any credit coming in. Well, except the odds makers. They're pretty high on the table, but outside of that, nobody's really thinking about them. And I'm really excited to see, and they've brought in Ali Flaxey, who's been their spare, but I mean, she's been, a competitive curler at the highest levels as well. And like we always say, in most sports, it's harder to win in Ontario than it is to win the national championship, just due to the population sometimes. So we'll see what happens here. I'm really excited for them. Yeah.
As I was going to say, and Kris, you mentioned it, that Group A is an absolute meat grinder. Like, it is a wagon. So I think when looking at Group B, Anderson at even money, I really like that. But you know what, Miss Q, I'm gonna ride with the Coolbet girls. I think I'm gonna take them to finish in the top 3. I think you can get that at plus 194. And I'm just looking forward to even just, game by game betting. Every single draw you'll be able to find at coolbet.com. Depending on when you're listening or watching this, you still might be able to sprinkle a little bit on the futures. But if you miss out, no problem. I do believe that we're going to have some futures open throughout this tournament. And then, of course, every single match, every single draw, you'll be able to bet the rock line, as Huss has deemed it, the over, the under, and the money lines as well. So Jake,
and watch out for Krista McCarville, home team.
Yes,
absolutely went on a run at the Olympic trials. The deal with this group is that they don't always play on the tour because they do live in Northern Ontario. They do have lives. They're not all professional curlers, but when they're out there, they can compete. So keep an eye on them this week as well. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
Plus 195, a slight favorite to win their group, just about twice the money that you get on carry over in the other group. And just as far as for folks, if you are interested, we obviously don't have enough time to go through them all, but there are a ton of pre-tournament options at Coolbet right now. It's interesting. I'm kind of staring down a couple of the numbers for pool wins, like Manitoba. I mean, these young girls that just won our province, the Zacharias group. I mean, they've had some big wins against top teams, so far this season. They've got a 4.5 number for their wins. And looking at Northern Ontario is 5.5 for pool wins. We sort of talked about that group there. The over's minus 135 on it. But anyways, a great time. Give yourself 10 or 15 minutes and go through all of the offerings before the first rock is, because those sort of bets are real fun to make. I mean, you don't have to bet a ton on it, and you've got some action essentially on every matchup in group play for some of the teams that you'll be following.
Actually, the other one, I know we need to move on from this, but the team from Quebec that really turned a lot of heads last year. Super long odds on them. And they're in that group that's kind of wide open. So, Quebec to make the playoffs at plus 250 is something to keep an eye on as well, I think.
Yeah. Hey, Huss, when you mentioned last year, I know you were super, super high on the Zacharias ranking. It wasn't just you. A lot of, the curling pundits were really high. And I don't want to say they were underwhelming, but maybe they weren't that sleeper pick that came up. Maybe this is the year. Maybe this is where they catch fire and, they make a name for themselves, on the big stage. So I don't think I'm going to place an outright, but I think that might be a bet, game by game, I might be betting. So Jake, as I was going to say, you and I, our challenge is to become absolute curling heads by the time the next Brier rolls around in London, just down the road from us. I can't wait for that. All 4 of us have to go, and we'll have a time.
Be setting up shop. The patch will be back, Kris. It better be back. We better be full back to normal. Although I will say this, Saskatoon, we had such a great time. It's sort of weird, like that 3-week period, like an amazing week in Saskatoon. The patch was wild. Everyone having a great time. Coming back, Bombers win the Grey Cup. We have this massive party in Winnipeg for about 3 days after the Bombers won. Huge thing at the stadium. And then like 2 days later, there's 1 million cases and everything's getting shut down. I mean, like we just squeezed that in before everybody had to take a time out for about 6 weeks. So hopefully this is the last time, because we know, and I'll say this to you, you guys maybe don't know, but you'll see in person next year in London, there is no party like a curling party. They are the most fun people. It is the greatest atmosphere of an event. And it was just a privilege to be out there with you, Kris, for the week in Saskatoon. We met so many great people, both involved in the sport as well as fans and spectators. If you've never had a chance to sort of go in and take part in a big national curling event, highly recommended. And tell you what, that'll be a great venue for next year. And I think next year on the curling scene is going to be so much fun, because we will get back to, all the things that make curling the sport that it is, which is so much more than just what happens in the 8 shots per end.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about the people in the curling community. Like, you guys know, obviously, that we're big Team Epping supporters, Team Holman supporters, but just getting to, for example, Glenn Howard was like the last minute 5th add-on for
best
Team Epping.
dude ever.
Glenn Howard is the
that was
coolest
the best
guy.
part of the entire being out there with you. The opportunity to just meet and hang out and shoot the shit with Glenn Howard, who was a guy, I'd seen him before, but and you've heard him and he seems like a great dude. Everything that you see, times it by 10 in real life. I mean, that was
awesome.
That was just so much fun. And man, he epitomizes what curling people are all about. Incredible folks, incredible athletes, and even more of a good time.
He's a beauty. Matt Dunstone, great guy. All the guys from Saskatchewan are just awesome when you meet them. But he's not originally from Saskatchewan, is he?
No, of course, he's from Winnipeg. I mean, they needed an import. I mean, it's much like it's like the Riders signing a top guy from the Bombers to try to get back to respectability. We've got there, and then when he needed a fill-in for Muskowie, he picked up Colton Lott, who's a kid from a young top curler from about an hour north of Winnipeg, who's one of the top mixed teams. There was a lot of people around here that were sort of hoping that he and his partner might get the nod as the mixed representative, because they've been one of the top teams in the world and they really do focus on that. But hey, Johnny Moe's got a gold medal. Rachel Holman's resume speaks for itself. So I don't think there's a lot of people questioning. It just sucked that they had to make a decision and we weren't actually able to have them play out, because I was fired up. That was going to be just down the road in Portage La Prairie. It was supposed to be right after Christmas, but it didn't happen. Everyone will be behind John and Rachel there. And but a lot of those young Manitobans, I think we'll hear more from, whether it's Matty Dunstone wearing a Sask jersey or Mackenzie Zacharias, as we just talked about.
Jake, you'll appreciate this, and I don't think Rachel and Johnny are going to mind that I tell this story. But so I'm sitting in my condo the other night, and you know how they're like isolating in this cabin in the woods, like with their coach before they go to Beijing, and I mean, it's got to be, they're training and stuff, but that's got to be boring, right? So all of a sudden I pick up my phone and it says Rachel Holman calling me. I'm like, first of all, this is ridiculous. Who am I? Rachel Holman's calling me. But she was like, hey, I was like, did you dial the wrong number? Are you what happened? Like, she's like, I was like, are you guys bored? Did you lose a dare? Like, why are you guys calling me tonight? Anyway, no, we're just here on Coolbet, and we're trying to figure out the best way to bet on Shapovalov. And so they were like, "Now the spread, the games, explain that." And so I was going through a little bit, and they're like, "All right, we're in." So I think they did bet on Shapovalov plus the games in against Nadal, and obviously he covered that, right, Jake? So you weren't the only one that was up late watching the tennis, because they had to stay up. They had to try and get on Beijing time. So they're So they're like, we're going to be up anyway. We're not allowed to go to bed until 3:30 a.m. So, and that's Alberta, right? So 2 hours less than Ontario. So yeah, so I thought that was pretty funny. But I think they're on their way over there now. So that's going to be exciting. So much curling coming up over the next few weeks, right? We've got the Scotties and the Olympics, the mixed doubles, and the four-player teams. So just unreal.
Absolutely. It's a great time to be a sports fan, and it's a great time to be a sports and entertainment fan.
Yes.
Because one of the best sporting events, entertainment events of the year is coming up. And I'm not talking about the Super Bowl and the halftime show, the Royal Rumble. This is honestly the most electric event. I'm so rattled. I watch maybe one wrestling event a year, and it's this one. Yeah. I used to be a hardcore wrestling fan. Like, I was raised by The Rock and Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan. But
was that a 3 Men and a Baby remake? You were raised by The Rock, Stone Cold, and Hogan?
No, literally, awesome. That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But I just found out that it's on a Saturday. Like, when did this happen? When did they change the?
Well, you know why it
pay-per-views
is
to be on a Saturday. It's
normally
they don't want to go up against the NFL, right?
Well, the Rumble has always been the week in between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, but they probably set their dates out for their stadiums and where they're holding it probably a year or two in advance.
Easy.
And then the NFL moved or added a game in the schedule. So all of a sudden with the week 18 game, it pushed everything back. So now instead of it being the off week, it's the week of the championship games. And can you imagine if they were starting their event at 6:00 and the NFC championship game is starting at 5:30? I mean, it would have been a disaster. So we've seen more wrestling events actually move to Saturdays. I'm not really too sure why. I mean, it was always Sunday for wrestling, and boxing and MMA was always on Saturday. That was sort of the way things worked. But we have seen that they've done a couple of other events. I think WrestleMania, the last year at least, has been a 2-night event anyway.
Yeah.
So
that's a bit much. But so I think they're also feeling the heat from AEW a little bit. I think AEW has been running their pay-per-views on Saturday night, and as much as they want to not recognize that they have competition, they certainly do. And I mean, honestly, I really wish there was like an AEW network, because I want to go back. I remember I watched it when it first launched because I thought it was so great that there was an alternative and they were pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. And then obviously it's just impossible to keep up with everything. So I would, if anybody out there knows where there's like a catalog where I can chronologically go through the AEW events and catch up, please let me know, because I really want to do that.
Did you see it on Wednesday?
No.
Dude.
So then I'm so far removed. I don't want to start watching it now because I want to get the backstory. You know what I mean?
Well,
So,
I know you're an old WWE guy, and we all remember like the TLC with Christian and Edge and the Hardy Boys. They had this ladder match to start it off, Cody Rhodes against Sammy Guevara. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. You've probably seen the GIFs of like the cutter off the top of like a 20-foot ladder. I honestly, I don't know how those guys walked out of the ring. And at some point, you can get so psycho that like I was legitimately worried. Like that was the thing from watching it, that something really bad was going to happen. But anyways, this was just from Wednesday night. I'm sure it's available out there. Check it out. It is it's one of the most nuts of matches period I've ever seen in the great history of sports entertainment.
What is it Tony Schiavone says? This is the greatest night in the history of our great sport, or something like that. Yeah. Like I'm looking at the odds here now. Who is Doudrop against Becky Lynch? Like I have no idea who this is, and she's in a title match.
Doudrop, yes, she's a larger woman from Scotland.
Oh, her and Becky have like they fought in the Indies in the UK back in the day?
I don't know. She's actually, I think, pretty young, but she just came in a little while ago, and whatever. The storyline was that I think it was Bianca Belair and someone else and this Doudrop were in a three-way match, and the winner was going to get Becky, and Becky sort of interfered to let her win, thinking that that would be an easier thing, and then so she's the big underdog going in there, but. She's physically imposing, shall I say?
Yeah, I saw a picture of her. She's she's definitely outside of Becky's weight class for sure. Ronda Rousey -133 to win. She's not back, right? This would be a surprise entrant.
Well, apparently, and again, much of the odds is sort of based on what the insiders are saying about what they've been working on behind the scenes, and at the end for the Royal Rumble, essentially what they're expecting to have happen for WrestleMania. And, Ronda's been gone for a while. She's obviously a huge star. There's a big push. So I believe that the assumption is that people are hearing that, maybe they've got the option to have Ronda come back for WrestleMania. And if that's the case, what better way to have her be a surprise entrant into the Royal Rumble and win it. So yeah, that really stood out to me because, I mean, she has not been on television as of late. And, you see that number right there, which, to be honest, I think sort of makes some of the other numbers the more value because, I mean, listen, if Ronda comes back and wins, then, hey, they were on it. But, to bet a -133 number for someone that is not even confirmed for the event is a little bit different, but it certainly helps that back. I mean, Bianca Belair is just such an incredible athlete. She's a true superstar in the making, and sort of got jobbed the way that they took the belt off her for Becky Lynch. So she's been waiting her turn, and to be honest, with this dewdrop thing, I think it sort of just put it off for Bianca to potentially win. So she's there. Alexa Bliss is going to be coming back. She's obviously a huge star. Very popular, hasn't been there for a while. So that would be a way to get her right back into the main event. And Liv Morgan. Lita's interesting. I mean, she, of course, is like a WWE legend, hasn't been there for a while, is coming back and is in the event, and would have that sort of star power that if she was able to win, much like Edge did last year, coming in and then winning. That's sort of the edge like that. And 11-1. I actually like that. I do sort of think that women's winner is going to be amongst the people at the top. The men's one is interesting because then Brock Lesnar is similar. He's right now not in the Royal Rumble. He's going to be fighting Bobby Lashley earlier, but I think what is expected and the reason why he's at plus 225 is there's long been speculated that the WrestleMania match is going to be Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. And if Brock were to lose against Lashley earlier in the event, the idea is that then he would go into the Royal Rumble, win the Royal Rumble, setting up the match with Roman Reigns, which has been long rumored to be the main event of WrestleMania. So that's why you're seeing Brock Lesnar at plus 225. The Roman Reigns.
Then we got Bobby Lashley at plus 140 in the one-on-one match.
Exactly. And that could certainly happen. So that's a great way of looking at it because, if Brock is going to get and be that guy in the Royal Rumble, in all likelihood, there'll be some sort of schadenfreude that may take Brock out. And Paul Heyman as well, going back and forth between Roman and Brock. That could also be a big part of the story, Chris. So you can look for that. The one guy, here's an interesting bet that I think I'm going to make. And I give my shout out D here. I was talking to a few of my insiders on, some numbers that maybe stand out when you're looking at this. A guy named Braun Breaker. You got to go all the way down to 35-1 in the event. And I'm not suggesting that he will win the event, but 17-1 to be the top four. He is the son of one of the Steiner brothers, former football player that came into NXT and has been this breakout star in NXT and has just won the NXT championship, I think probably in like the last month or so. So, the way that the company is going, they've sort of turned over everybody in NXT. Triple H is out. They've got all new people there. He's sort of this big young star. And while he's not going to the main roster or anything like that, I wouldn't be. So I'll put it this way. I think it's worth a sprinkle at 17-1 that they might use this opportunity to get him over, to really highlight him as the NXT champ and maybe hang around until the end. So the fact that there's a number on the top four at 17-1 for Braun Breaker, I think if you're looking for a nice little long shot to see what works, that number really stands out, certainly as opposed to many of the other numbers in and around that spot that, frankly might not even be in it. Matt Riddle's another interesting guy, 30-1 to win, 7-1 to be in the final four. He's such an amazing athlete, great personality. He's going places. Wouldn't be surprised if he had not necessarily winning it, but a nice run and a main spot at some point in the end. So I like those two for top fours as well. If you're looking for something, a smaller bet with a bit bigger of a payoff.
How about this prop? I've never seen this. Match duration, over under minutes. Under an hour, minus 135, an hour or more, minus 102.
Oh, geez. We're going to have to go back in the WWE catalog and get the stopwatch out. And,
wow. I like that. Because remember back in the day, I tweeted this last week. Somebody said, JD Bunkus tweeted like after Sunday night, I said, what am I supposed to do now? And I said, I normally watch the Royal Rumble 92 to go back and decompress. And in that one, like Ric Flair entered at number 3 and won it. And I remember the whole match, like he's been in there for this many minutes. He's been in there for this many minutes. I'm betting over the hour. I'm betting over the hour. Absolutely. Although it's not 2 minutes in between entries anymore, right? It's 90 seconds now.
You know what? That's what they say, but again, it's wrestling, right? I mean, like you're just sitting there and like they'll
What
just
do you
tell
mean?
you just
What are you
all of a
trying to say?
sudden they pull up, like depending on what happens, they'll be like, oh, 10 seconds, 9, 8, and they bring someone else in. I'm pretty sure that there's not like an official timer for the Royal Rumble.
You don't think they set the clock at the middle of the stadium and run it down to the exact second?
I can tell you they don't.
That's heartbreaking. They don't set the penalty time, yeah?
No, there's not like a big score clock like at a hockey game where you're always looking at the clock. You just sort of you find out 10 seconds before the next guy comes in. That's basically how it works.
Jake, you a wrestling guy? Did you ever watch, or are you just gonna ride our picks here and hope to win some dough?
No, I'm super fascinated by it all. Even the curling stuff, I'm pretty fresh into that world as well. So, no, never a huge wrestling guy. One of my best friends growing up he knew all the wrestlers, whatever our time was. But no, not huge into it. Whatever McAfee's doing, I kind of have an eye on that. And then just some of the older guys.
He's the best.
Yeah, he's great. And I follow The Rock and stuff. But nothing in the new era of wrestling. But it's super fascinating. It's the characters they build there and what they go on to do. It's super impressive. Amazing what they've done.
Well, Huss, you were talking about just one sec, Pat. Huss, you were talking about the women's match. I just want to go back to it for a second. One, Alexa Bliss better come back as old Alexa Bliss and not this like demonic Alexa Bliss.
The goth girl. I'm with you.
I prefer like pink-haired Alexa Bliss, a little bit punky, but when she was like champion, I like that version of her. The first version they had of her in NXT was a little bit too like caricature. But I like where she's at now. Paige at 15-1. She's not back.
Well, I've heard that she's going to be cleared, sort of like Edge was.
Oh.
But listen, considering the injuries that she had and what she's going through, the thought that she'd come in, win, and main event WrestleMania, I probably won't be on that.
And here's my favorite part. Summer Rae, who has not been in WWE forever, right? She never came back. She's plus 180, 185-1. And then Tamina Snuka on the roster, 300-1.
The disrespect.
All these hypothetical people that probably won't even be in the match, and then someone who probably will be. And she's got longer odds. Yeah.
Hey, one thing on that, Nikki Bella speaking. I mean, there was the Bella twins, or the huge stars, reality TV, gorgeous. There's been rumors that they're coming back, and if Nikki Bella is able to, like, she would be the sort of star that could go up in main event 25-1. Again, we don't know that she's in there. But if you want to throw a $5 or something on that, Nikki's the sort of person, if she was a last minute addition to it, could totally see that would be a big way to bring her back, because she's, of course, a former champion and certainly gets eyeballs on the screen when she's on there. Let's just say that.
She's way cooler than her sister, too. Okay, do you know, and I mean, I don't know why I'm admitting this, but there was a time in my life where I did not miss an episode of Total Bellas. I watched basically every season of Total Bellas. I don't know how. I think I really like, they used to show a lot of the wrestlers kind of, this is before what they had, like Total Divas after that, right? Or vice versa. But I always thought it was cool to see them in there just like their regular life, like you'd see John Cena telling her like, no, I'm not going to your parents' house for Thanksgiving. He was just get out of here.
It's funny.
Anyway,
I'm a big Cena guy. He's what a run he's had with the number one. But love to see Cena back for it. But maybe that's another time. We'll take Nikki Bella's reemergence in WWE if that does happen.
All right.
One thing I wanted is, because I know you got to get going for the lock shop. So before you do take off, we'll get your weekend wager and we'll do ours on the other side here. But I just wanted to note, AJ Styles, he opened at plus 1,000. He's now all the way down to plus 400. So either somebody knows something or someone thinks they know something and they threw a boatload of money on it and kind of has changed the line. So that could be one there, but
they don't want none.
Something to keep in mind. There you go. So Huss, before you get going, what is your best bet of the weekend for the weekend wagers?
You know what? Weekend wagers. How about this? We've talked about everything except the Canada-USA World Cup qualifier. Big win last night in Honduras. I realize this is going to be a very, very tough spot for Canada to get a full 3 points against the United States without Alphonso Davies and Estacio. But I'll tell you what, that team came up big last night. They seem to be on a mission. Our goalie, Borjan, I mean, just what a performance. I think they're ready for this game. I'm going to just take the draw in the matchup, which I think is plus 210. Oh, it's plus 190 right now. It's actually changed. Really, really wild odds for this one. Canada plus 190, draw plus 190, USA plus 180. A draw for Canada would almost be like a win. We're in first place. USA wouldn't catch us at all and I don't want to say it would guarantee, but I mean, we're in such a great spot, but I don't think this team's going to lose to the United States on home soil. Kris, I know you're going to be there. I'm going draw Canada-USA in the World Cup qualifier on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, that's what I said on the Fan Morning Show today. I said for a couple of reasons. I don't think either of these teams want to jeopardize giving away 3 points to the other. I think they said it right on the broadcast last night. Like, whatever gets you to Qatar is what matters right now. And I don't think that either of these teams, they're both in pretty good spots. And how do they phrase it? Like, don't make this out to be the cup final. It is. So you might see a little bit of hesitancy. It's going to be frigid. The wind is going to be coming off Lake Ontario right next to that stadium. It's going to be cold. I can't wait, but I think the draw is a good play. I'm also going to, I'm stuck between draw or then betting Canada draw no bet. Maybe I'll make both bets because Canada was about even money, draw no bet this morning.
Don't forget, order a Canada. You take that USA double chance, and we'll take that 3 points and get out of there.
Yeah,
I can't do it while I'm in the stadium. Maybe I'll take the under. Who knows?
There you go. Well, Huss, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the Coolbet Canada podcast. It's your first time on. I can almost guarantee you it will not be your last time. We'll have to have you on again. Maybe around a major, we can talk some golf. I know you and I.
Every major, we got to be getting that going beforehand. I would be listen. We had so much fun doing that before every major. I mean, let's get it going. Hell, we had the Farmers this week. I'm down Torrey Pines. Well, I guess they're at Torrey Pines right now. Riviera, we could do. I mean, anytime you want to talk golf, I'm in. But anytime you want me on this to chat with you fellas, in as well. Really enjoyed it, guys. And may your bets all win, except if you're taking the Bengals.
Thanks a lot, Huss.
Take care, guys.
And that was Andrew Hustler Paterson. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram at HustlerRama. And you can also find him on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media platforms for Winnipeg Sports Talk. It was great catching up with Huss. He's always a lot of fun. I feel like we could have had a 3-hour podcast, but he had to get running for Lock Shop. You can also catch him and Kris Abbott on the Lock Shop as well. Friday episode, they go live, but you can always listen it back onto the podcast after. That's usually what I do, Kris. I'll turn on the podcast when I go walk my dog.
Most people turn it on when they want to go to sleep, but I appreciate that.
No, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. And especially the way they've been throwing out winners, it's an absolute must watch. Speaking of throwing out winners, it is now time for weekend wagers. We heard Huss's pick. Now it's for ours. Jake, what's your best bet for the weekend?
I was going to go football, and then Kris kind of made my pick seem stupid. I was going to go Bengals team total over. But he started talking about that earlier in the show, and I was like, well, maybe I don't go with that.
Well, hey, listen, maybe you really should go with it.
I'm going to go with the Aussie Open. I think I've been on it for the last week. Up until last night, the Berrettini play obviously didn't go over too well, but I like the Aussie Open. I think I really want to get into this tennis thing. I think what they're doing with this kind of drive to survive reality thing they're also doing for the PGA is going to be amazing. I think the personalities, I think the young guns in the tennis coming up, I tweeted about it earlier in the week. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm going to go over 40.5 in the men's final. It's Nadal and Medvedev. Nadal is kind of breaking the curse here. This is the one tournament that He just hasn't been able to get over the hump, get that final. Medvedev, unbelievable player. They're calling him a villain already. He's 25 years old, Russian player. He loves to talk trash. It's going to be must-watch TV. Unfortunately, it's at 3:30 in the morning or something like that. So going to be tough for us, but I'm sure it'll be great out in Australia. I'm going to take over 40.5 games in that one. It's probably going to have to go 5 sets, but the way Nadal's been playing, he's breaking in timely moments, and he's not really giving up a whole lot. He kind of lets his opponent beat themselves, and he's okay to give up a set. I've watched him for the last two matches now. He's fine giving up a set as long as he can find a way in the end. He did it against Chapo, and Berrettini had him almost on the ropes in the 4th set. He just found a way. So I think this one could go 5. I'm going to take over 40.5 games.
Perfect.
You've been
Kris.
on fire. You've been on fire this Australian
Yes.
Open, right? Like ridiculous.
Yeah, like I said, up until the Berrettini, a pretty big miss last night. But even then, that 4th set, there was a few chances where Berrettini, I thought he was going to do it. His serve was monstrous. He went 5 straight service games to love, which is like unheard of against a guy like Nadal. And the 6th one, he got broken. It was insane. I was like, what is going on? You go 5 straight service games to love, broken in the 6th one. But I still think it's good value. I'd make the pick 10 times out of 10. So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully I can catch the final, and we'll go on to the next major.
There you go. I love it. Kris, what are you thinking for your best bet for the weekend?
Man, there's so much out there. I'm just looking at it now. But Pat, I just need you to co-sign on this because I think it's a bet I want to make.
Okay, let's hear it.
Your Halifax Thunderbirds -1.5 in Albany this weekend. Are they healthy? Because they've looked so good.
You know what? They got two of their best offensive players. Last game, Austin Shanks had an unbelievable game, 6 goals. Cody Jamieson, their captain, their best lefty. He came back, but he looked a little bit rusty. I don't think they have any COVID protocol issues. I like that bet. Obviously, I see Halifax a lot, so I might be having the rose-colored glasses on. The only thing that scares me is this is a team. I know it's Albany, it's a new team, but when they were with New England, they always seem to give Halifax and then Rochester a lot of fits. That's the only thing that scares me. But I don't know. Halifax, you said it. They look so good so far, and they're a team that just finds ways to win. They've had 2 games going to overtime as well, so the -1.5 also kind of scares me. But I'm never gonna persuade you not to bet on the T-Birds. I think you can go with that. It's going to be a sweat. I'll be honest. It will be a sweat.
Okay, well, there's another.
Game.
Do you think that Saskatchewan or Buffalo are locks? Because if they are, then I just make it a Thunderbirds money line parlay with the Rush or with the Bandits. What's your money line absolute mortal lock for the NLL this week? And then I'll just parlay that with the Thunderbirds.
I think it's got to be Buffalo, and it's just the New York Riptide are coming off a big win, but Buffalo. You talk about how good Halifax has looked. You could argue that Buffalo's looked even better, and it's that game. I know they're on the road. The game's now on a Sunday. They had to move things around because of a big storm coming through Long Island, but I know you could say they're due for a loss, but I just don't see New York being able to keep up with that offense, although they are pretty electric on offense. The other one you mentioned, Saskatchewan, they've been so bad to start this year. I think this is the game that they get right against an expansion team in You know what? I change it. That's going to be my lock. There is no possible way Saskatchewan could start this season 1-5. That's my lock. Buffalo's pretty close there. So you could get some sort of parlay in the mix there.
Do all three. Do all three.
Well, I think I've got another way to do that is the Thunderbirds money line. Basically, it's Thunderbirds money line with something you think is a lock. So Canada, USA under 3.5. That comes to -105. So listen, maybe I'll go with that.
Let's go with the Rush. They're playing at home. They're 1-4. This is a team that's supposed to be competing for a championship. And I think this is a game. If they lose, they might, this is a team that this is supposed to be their year to win a championship for the last time with this core group. If they lose, I think they now become sellers. and they just fire sale a lot of these vets who are on expiring contracts. So I think this is a must-win spot for them against a Panther City team that only has one win. You know, they're a pesky team. I like what their coach and their management has done. They've bought into this culture. The players have, but I think Saskatchewan finally gets it done. So for my weekly wager, Kris, I'm going to stay with the National Lacrosse League. I'm going to actually stay with that Halifax-Albany game. I'm taking the under 23. I know Halifax scary when you take an under with them because they can explode for goals. But Albany hasn't hit double digits once this season so far. Their offense is solid, but that's not the way they win games. I think if they want to, come out with a win here against Halifax, it's going to be a grind. They're going to be slowing things down. You saw Albany play too. Goalie Doug Jamieson, great goalie, big body.
Two sick goalies, really right?
Well.
Two
great goalies. Two really, really good goalies from Six Nations. And I think, and two defenses that are really, really good. In Halifax, everyone talks about the offense. Their defense is just as good. So I'm taking the under 23. I hate taking the under in lacrosse games, but just the way those two teams are built. And I think the game script that Albany is going to, that Albany is going to want, they're going to, really grind things down and not get into a shootout here.
Use the shot clock, all that stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go. So you can find all those odds and much more at coolbet.com. And of course, if you're not a cool better yet, head to coolbet.com/CA/sign up. And in under 30 seconds, you can sign yourself up for a Cool Bet account. And of course, if you want a little extra sprinkling money to go with it, use promo code CAD200 and we will double your deposit up to $200 Canadian. So guys, before we get going, I know we've run a little bit long this week, but there's a lot to talk to. And anytime Huss comes on, we could be going forever. But anything you want to leave the folks before we get going here?
Yeah, two quick things. I know, like you said, we have run a little longer than expected. Alternate over in the Chiefs-Bengals game, 58.5 is going out plus 146. I don't care what this number is. I just want it to go over. I want to have fun on Sunday afternoon. The other one, Canadians men's national team promo that we have going right now.
Yes,
so
yes.
Honduras game is passed. The U.S. game is coming on Saturday night. You bet $25 on that game, minimum odds minus 200 or 1.5, whatever you use. You bet $25 on that game, and you will get a $15 free bet for the El Salvador game on Tuesday, I believe it is, February 2nd. So yes. $25 on the U.S. game, Canada, minimum minus 200 odds. You get a $15 free bet for the El Salvador game on Tuesday. So make sure you opt into that in the promotion section of the site.
Absolutely love it.
I just ripped my headset out of my ears during that. Not sure what the video looks like, but
that's a sign we got to get going.
That's it.
Friday.
I'm out.
The vibes are good. Everyone enjoy the weekend of wagering. It's a super sports weekend. And of course, you can find all those odds at coolbet.com. For Kris Abbott, Jake Bolin Moss, I'm Pat Gregoire. We want to thank you for tuning in on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you don't subscribe yet, do it so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, stay cool.